Hey folks, hope you're doing well. We are going to just keep on chugging along and creating this website for this 3-day challenge. So for this video, we are going to jump right into the WordPress dashboard. We are going to really polish up your website, get it all set for day 2 when we really start digging into the design of your website and the layout, the really fun stuff. So we got to plug through this boring stuff and then we can get to the fun stuff. So to start for today, let's log into the Bluehost dashboard and go straight to your site. So logging into your WordPress website. So your WordPress website was installed automatically by Bluehost to your domain that you bought. So mine is beaglebrands.com. That's where they installed it. So in order to log in, when you first set it up, you're going to have to go through Bluehost. So go to your dashboard, My Sites, and click Login. Once you're there, it'll take you into your WordPress website in the back end, and I would recommend first of all going to Users, All Users. This is going to display the account that they automatically made for you. We're going to go ahead and go in and change that password to something that you know, and that way you know your username and you know your password, and if you want to get into your site without going through Bluehost, you know how to do that. So I actually went through this already and I set a new password. I already know what that is. So I am now going to show you how to log into your website directly without having to go through Bluehost. So to do that, I'm going to log out. All right, so I am logged out of my website. This is just the default website that they put on my domain for me. Obviously, we are going to change that. So to log into your WordPress website, go ahead and go to your domain and just type in /wp-admin. WP-admin, I'm sorry. And that will take you right to the WordPress website login page. Go ahead and ignore the login with WordPress.com. That's not something we're going to worry about. Click this blue login with username and password link with our newly changed password, and we're going to log in. And that will take you back to this WordPress dashboard. So just remember, there are 2 different ways to log in. If you don't always want to have to go through bluehost.com, just go to yourdomain.com/wp-admin, and that will get you in. That being said, this is the WordPress dashboard. So you'll notice there's a whole bunch of gunk on this dashboard, a whole lot of junk that we really don't need. I'm going to go through and get you set up with getting rid of a lot of this stuff because a lot of it is not needed. That's happening because Bluehost went ahead and installed a lot of things that it thought we needed, and we actually don't. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to get rid of that, a lot of that stuff, and we will get to that in a second. But first, let's just take a look at this. So this is really the main navigation that you're going to see when you log into a WordPress site. Obviously, this isn't your actual front-facing site. So there's a front-facing site and there's a back end. Right now we're in the back end, and that's where you're going to make all of your changes to your website, all of your design updates, set up your users, all of that kind of stuff. If we go ahead and click this welcome link up here and click visit site, this is going to take you to the front end. So this is the front end of your website. This is what other people see. This is the front facing side. And this is where people are going to go when they visit yourdomain.com. So there's the front end and there's the back end. So just keep that in mind. If I ever talk about front end versus back end, now you know what I'm talking about. So for this back end, you have kind of this dashboard as I talked about before, but then over here on the left sidebar, this is your main navigation for getting around the back end. You'll see a whole bunch of links here. Sometimes plugins add their own little links here. Most of this is the default WordPress options here. So right now, this is actually also filled up with a bunch of stuff and plugins that we don't really need. So let's go ahead and take care of that right now. So if you come over here and click on plugins, and that'll take you to the plugins page. Again, lots of popovers up here. We're going to take care of that right now. So again, just to reiterate, plugins are just kind of like little add-ons for your website. They just kind of add different functionality to your website, different ways to do things. Typically, they add easier ways to do things so that you don't have to sit down and code it yourself. So lots of useful things, but that being said, there's a lot of junky things that can really slow down your website that you really don't want, and they can add unnecessary stuff like this onto your website. So we're going to want to get rid of that right away. So go ahead and scroll down to your plugins list. You'll see everything that's currently installed right here. Like I said, Bluehost went ahead and installed pretty much the majority of these, and I don't think there's any of these that we even want. So let's go ahead and go through one by one. Anti-spam, we're not going to deal with that right now, so we're going to check that. Bluehost, that's the one we are going to keep because that will actually allow your website to talk to your Bluehost provider and kind of let them stay in sync. It's not necessarily needed, but for this purpose, but for the purposes of this tutorial, I'm going to recommend just leaving that one. Constant contact, not needed. Google Analytics, we're not going to worry about that right now. I will show you how to kind of set up your Google Analytics later. We don't really need that for right now. Hello Dolly is a default WordPress plugin that's installed and everything. It's really not needed. It's just kind of like a, hey, your website's working kind of thing. So everyone deletes that one. Jetpack, not needed. OptinMonster and WP Forms, all of these things not needed. So what you're gonna actually want to do is go ahead and click deactivate first and click apply on that, and that's going to go ahead and deactivate the plugins. It's not going to delete them yet. We're going to deactivate them first. So there you'll see they're deactivated. They don't have that little blue bar and bold font on them. So that just means that they're deactivated. So now that they're deactivated and not active, we're going to go ahead and click these ones that we don't want. That one's not deactivated, so we're going to deactivate it. All right, now they're all deactivated. We're going to click these ones that we don't want and delete. Delete, 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 delete. Boom. Okay, WordPress has deleted all the plugins and the junk that we don't need. And right away you can tell this left navigation bar is so much simpler, so much less stuff over there. That's super useful. And here's the actual default WordPress dashboard without all that other unnecessary stuff. So this is what you're going to normally see when you install WordPress without much of a hosting provider's help. Most hosting providers actually install something onto your dashboard. The majority of those plugins are not needed. So what else is in here that we can kind of go through? So we're just going to go through this navigation and I'll give you an overview of these things one by one. So going through here, you'll see posts and pages. So to tell you the difference between those, so posts is primarily used for blogs. So, you know, the term blog posts. So that's where that term comes from. These are each posts. So if you have a blog, these are going to be each a different blog post. I'll go ahead and show you that front end. So right now you're seeing Hello World. That's a blog post. This is what they set up. This is what it looks like. It has a comment on there. So that's what posts are primarily used for, but then you also have pages. So pages are used for the actual pages of your website. So you'll see right now it defaults to just privacy policy and sample page. So these are, you know, your different pages on your website, your about page, your home page, your services pages. All of those are going to go on pages. So just keep that in mind as we go through and talk about posts and pages. Posts are for blog posts, pages are for all the other pages on your website. And then going down here, we also have the media library. So that is going to be where all of your images are hosted and kept organized. You can go ahead and add new from here. You can also add them as you go, but anything you ever add is going to be in here. It's kind of useful to come in here and see it and organize and delete them as you go. This will also host any PDFs or videos that you upload. They're going to appear here. Comments, so these are the comments that anyone makes on your blog posts. You can see that comment from earlier appears here. You can delete them, trash them, whatever you want from this page in the dashboard. Appearance has a whole lot of different options. This is where you're going to really set up the design and basic theme of your website. I'm not going to go into this right now. That's more of a day two kind of thing. So for now, just know that appearance is obviously where you're going to set the design of your website. Plugins we already went through. On a different day, I'm going to show you how to actually install a new one and find new ones. But for now, that's where the plugins are. Users. So we kind of went through this before, but users, this section of the website, you can add as many different people to the website as you want. Give them a username and a password and sign them. So if we go to add new here, you can kind of see the different information that it requires to add a person. just know that once you fill out this form and add them, it's going to email that user and let them know that that account was created and prompt them to create their own password. Please remember that that email will likely show up in junk. I don't think I've ever seen it actually show up in someone's normal inbox. So whoever you're adding, make sure to tell them to check their junk box because they likely will not see that email in their normal inbox. So all this is pretty basic info, but down here you have the role. So you can assign different roles to that user. You can either be a subscriber, a contributor, author, editor, administrator. If you want someone else to contribute to your website and actually have control over the different theme and design, everything that you can do, assign them as an administrator. That's going to give them all the power that you currently have. If you just want someone to create blog posts and stuff like that, choose editor or author or contributor. These other roles are typically just assigned automatically based on, where the user is signing up from. But typically when you're going to add a user, administrator is the best way to go. So that's where you can do that. You can also come to your profile, and there's a few different settings in here. If you want the WordPress dashboard to have a different theme, you can kind of click through here, give it some different fun colors. One other kind of useful setting is this show toolbar when viewing site. So as I showed you before, when you come to the front-facing website, it keeps this WordPress toolbar up here. Sometimes that can get in the way of your theme and cover up the navigation bar. So just know that you can come in here under user's profile and turn that setting off on a per user basis, and then that will go ahead and get rid of that bar. And that will go ahead and get rid of that bar. So then if we come in here, that bar is just gone. It's a little bit cleaner. Just remember, you would just go to WP admin and that will take you back to the dashboard. So that's something to keep in mind. The rest of this is kind of basic stuff about yourself that will really only show up depending on what your theme is. For now, you don't really have to worry about it. Tools, this isn't super useful, especially at this moment. There's some different things in here. If you're creating a new website, but you want to import posts from a different blog you have, this is where you can do that. You can also export posts if you are all set on this website and you want to do the reverse and send the post to a different website. You can do that here. There's also a site health checker that WordPress itself has created that gives you some stuff. They'll give you some good recommendations, but definitely take it with a grain of salt. All right, moving on, we have the settings. So the settings page will give us a lot of the settings for WordPress, a lot of default settings we can change in here. We have the site title, which defaults to welcome. Obviously, I don't want that. I want it to be Beagle Brands, so that's what my site's going to be called. You can see that changed up here. That's kind of useful. Tagline, this is kind of a subheading to your website. Sometimes it appears depending on what theme you have, sometimes it doesn't. So if I go ahead and put test in there with the default WordPress theme, you can see that would appear right here underneath the main name of the website. So that I'm going to leave blank for myself right now. You have the website address. Do not mess with this, otherwise it will likely break your website. So definitely make sure you know what you're doing there. Everything else in here, I'm not really going to spend time on right now. You can kind of see them in there, play around with them if you want. The only other thing I will go through is this permalink setting. So for SEO, and we'll get into this later, I do recommend go ahead and come in here right away and change this comment settings to post name. Why are we doing that? So if you change that setting, anytime you make a blog post, it's going to create a URL for you automatically. So if I create a new post titled Best Beagle Brands, it's going to automatically create that URL based on what we select here. So right now I selected post name, so the URL for that post will be beaglebrands.com/bestbeaglebrands. If we were to choose something else, it will base it off the day and name that we create the post, the month and name that we create the post, numeric. The reason why I tell you to change this is for SEO purposes. When Google searches your site, if you have the URLs to be just these generic numbers or dates, it's not going to know anything about that post. If you change it to the actual post name and title your post correctly, that's going to be a huge help for SEO. There's really hardly ever any reason to use a different setting other than this post name. They really should just default to this. I don't know why they don't, but definitely come in here, settings, permalinks, change it to post name right away when you set up your website. Click save and you're good to go. And if you didn't notice, that is the last thing in this navigation bar. So that kind of concludes this very fast, brief overview of the WordPress dashboard and backend. Obviously, there's a whole lot to go through yet, but that kind of completes the stuff for this video. Next, we are going to keep setting up different stuff and keep chugging along.